Good morning, Rebecca. How's it going? Welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast. We had quite an interesting conversation before the recording, so I am super excited for the audience to hear what you have to say and to hopefully learn a few things. And maybe our country can inhabit some of those awesomeness that Canada has to offer. So, for those of you that don't know who Rebecca is, she is an amazing paralegal, but also an immigration consultant, which we'll learn about that in a few seconds. And she's located in the one of my favorite countries in the world, Canada, the land of the happy people. So go ahead, Rebecca, if you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do and what is an immigration consultant, because I'm sure everybody's wondering.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to this chat today. So yeah, a bit of a loaded question. So maybe I'll just try to break it down. Like you said, I'm a paralegal and a immigration consultant. In Ontario, paralegals are licensed. So I've been licensed since 2017. And I'm also a immigration consultant, which I've been licensed or regulated since 2021. So it's relatively new for me. So yeah, I guess we'll dive in with the immigration consultant element first. So in Canada, if you want to provide services regarding immigration, you can do it as a lawyer, or you can do it as an immigration consultant. So while I've been working since 2019 is when I started, I completed the education. It took me about 2 years to complete. There's a 3-hour exam at the end. And then we get the approval that we can now provide immigration services. And what that means is that I can provide representation for individuals that are looking to immigrate to Canada. So it's inbound. And then I can also do representation at the tribunal. So refugee, immigration applications, appeals, I'm able to do it all. So that's a quick summary of what an immigration consultant is and the education behind it. Like we were talking about kind of before the show started, there's a lot of changes happening with the profession. They're changing the education. They're changing actually what the immigration consultants are able to do. So right now with the education I have, I can represent clients at a tribunal, but coming up soon, they're going to add an extra educational component. So that way you have to now complete more education in order to do the tribunal representation, which I personally think is great. Currently, the way it has been right now is it's one class that you take. I did mine during the pandemic, so it was via Zoom. And wow. I think definitely if you're going to do tribunal representation, you need a bit more practice before
just a little bit. Just
yeah. So I'm personally really excited for the changes that they're making. The education used to be offered at, I believe it was 11 colleges and universities across Canada. But now they've changed it to just 2. So Queen's University and McGill University. English at Queen's, French at McGill. And yeah, I think it's really great for the profession. And I see a lot of positive changes happening, which I'm so excited to be a part of.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Actually, that sounds great. And it just gave me chills because hopefully we'll eat some of that up too, because like I was telling you before, there are several states that are already making that movement for the limited licensing. So maybe, they can see what Canada's doing and America can, see where we can go, because I feel like we all need that happy median, right? As we were saying before, a lot of people don't understand the paralegal profession, what we do, what we cannot do, what does that entail, what are our limitations? And right now, that's all up in the air, depending on where you're at, what jurisdiction you're located in. It depends, like everything else in law, right? That's always our go-to answer is it depends. So this really excites me because I feel like such a leading country, even though a lot of people don't see Canada that way. I do. I think they're a very leading company or country in general when it comes to things like that. I feel like, okay, that's great because that shows a lot of progression for us as well, because Americans have to be competitive.
Of course.
So we're hoping we move that train a lot faster, which thanks to the pandemic, the train has been moving a lot faster for the paralegal profession. And hopefully it continues. So I love this whole immigration thing. For a lot of people, it's super unique because immigration, even though it's a big political issue, it's not quite illegal. There's not very many, just for all of you that are listening out there, and maybe Rebecca, there's not a lot of immigration litigation. There's a lot of disputes. There's a lot of custodies, but actual litigation as far as, you know, the transports and the paperwork and all that stuff, it's super delayed. It's always like the last, you know, on the list, and obviously that has a lot to do with politics, so we're not going to get into that, but I love that. I mean, that's a whole other thing, and I'm not for either, so hey, I'm not, you know, hey, you know, I'm about the law. Whatever the law says is what we go by. And that's really the oath that as paralegals and legal professionals is what we take, is to abide by the law and have justice for all. So I'll leave it at that. But I love that you guys have these more, I'm all about education. I don't know if you follow the Let's Talk Paralegal brand, but that's literally what we do. We educate, you know, the public, we educate legal professionals, we enhance their skills. We try to do all of that. So I feel like the progression of the education portion of it is necessary. I feel like education is like a foundation, and then you can take it from there. But we all need that, you know, foundation to start. So absolutely. I love it. So tell us a little bit about the paralegal role, because obviously you've kind of already inserted a little bit of it, because you can do, you know, tribunal, which if you guys don't know what tribunal means, it's like a version of small courts for us. So not small claims, but small courts. Like we don't have like the big judicial or Supreme Courts. The little courts that we go to, that's kind of, you know, hand in hand with the tribunal, just to guys give you an idea. So tell us about the paralegal role, because that's gonna like shock everybody.
Yeah. So as well as being an immigration consultant, I'm also a licensed paralegal. So in Canada, specifically Ontario, we actually license our paralegals. So only in Ontario, no other province or territory has it. And so what does a licensed paralegal mean? So it's a 2-year program at college. And then you have to, actually with the education, you also have to complete 120 hours of a placement or internship.
Ooh, and then once awesome. We need that here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like the placement, amazing. Yeah, I feel like the placement portion of it is key. And I actually, for the last 2 years, have been taking on placement students as a licensed paralegal. And I feel like it's such an important element of learning law and just getting into the thick of it, because
that's like my vision right now. Oh my God, literally.
Yeah.
And
oh my God, you can only learn so much from a textbook, right? So I feel like the placement element is key. So you have to complete 120 hours, but the college that I went to actually required 160. So I completed 160 hours as part of my placement before I could do my exam. So becoming a licensed paralegal, you have to also complete an exam. 7 hours. It's grueling, it's tough, but I passed. And so I became a licensed paralegal.
Yay.
And then once you're licensed, you have to also do the annual reports every year. You have to submit fees every year. You have to abide by the ethics. And licensed paralegals in Ontario are governed by the same society as lawyers. So the Law Society of Ontario governs both lawyers and paralegals.
Love it.
Which I absolutely love. And the Law Society of Ontario, you know, going to paralegal college, they kind of instill a bit of fear in you about the Law Society. It's something that you should maybe be scared of. If you get an audit, like it takes a ton of time. But what I've actually found is that they're an amazing resource. So if you have any practice management questions, if you have any like concerns, or you find yourself in a bit of a gray area, like I'm not actually sure what I should do, they have a phone number that you can call, and I have called them a few times, and they are always so nice. They explain everything in such a clear and concise way, and I find them to be an amazing resource. So I'm happy that the Law Society is not only for lawyers, but paralegals as well.
Yeah, I think having the knowledge of both sides provides a better overall customer service and membership, right? Because it's kind of like you're a member. I mean, it would be our version of like the American Bar Association, which oversees all the attorneys in the country. But Yeah, I love that idea. Oh my God. I'm like, I don't know if you can see me, but I'm just like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Tell me more. Yeah, so that's like the educational component and just getting licensed. And then once you're licensed as a paralegal, you can actually provide legal advice and legal services, which is very different, I believe, in the US, which is you cannot provide legal advice.
Nope.
But it's a narrow scope of practice. So paralegals have a scope of practice that covers a few areas. So there's summary convictions, which is essentially criminal law, but you're only facing 6 months or less in jail. There's small claims, which is under 35,000. There's tribunals, which we've already discussed. And then there's provincial offenses as well. So like the Highway Traffic Act. Also, as a licensed paralegal, we're commissioners and we can commission affidavits. And we're actually able to, as of recently, I believe it was January 2020, we can now be notary publics, which means we can notarize documents as well. So the profession has definitely grown over the last, few years. It started in 2008. That's when the Law Society issued their first licensing.
Super young. Wow. Because our paralegal profession has been around since like the 70s, 1970s. So that's I mean, did you have like legal assistant, legal secretary? Like, did you all go through that as well? Okay, all right, yeah. So that's kind of how like the whole thing went.
Yeah, we had paralegals and legal assistants before, but the Ontario decided to make it one extra step further, which is licensing them and being able to provide them the authority.
We just got there like in 2020 and not in all 50 states. I think maybe 2 have officially passed it. So
yeah. No, it's a very interesting profession. It's ever changing. I mean, when paralegals were first licensed in 2008, small claims was only 10,000. And then I believe it was in 2010, it went up to 25,000. And then it was 2020, it went up to 35,000. So as laws are changing, legislation is changing, the paralegal profession is growing as well, which I find amazing. It provides access to justice, which I'm all about. And it's an exciting profession to be a part of.
Yeah, and it provides affordable, right? Because I mean, you don't have to disclaim your pricing, and obviously we're not gonna know because we'll have to convert it anyway. But like, is it very similar in the fact that there's only certain ways that you can price, right? Because you're not an attorney, but yet you're licensed. So how does that work? Because now I'm interested.
Yeah. So being a licensed paralegal by the Law Society, the Law Society provides us rules and regulations that we have to follow, but they're somewhat vague. So it's up to our discretion. So we're able to provide like hourly rates or flat rates. And, there are some changes with how we bill and what we do, but generally speaking, it's up to our discretion. But it has to be reasonable. So what that means, I think, depends on who you are, but it can't be, $1 million to do a $10,000 small claims case or something like that. Like it has
like
to
that
be,
doesn't make sense.
Yeah. But we're allowed to bill essentially how we see fit. And I think that answers your question.
Yeah, no, for sure. That absolutely. Because I feel like there's a confusion there when, especially when you're a contractor or a freelancer or a business owner, like most of the paralegals I work with and my close colleagues now, since I opened up at Rosa LLCs in 2017, I noticed that that's the number one question that I get from all the paralegals I coach is, what do I do with my pricing? How do I price it? I mean, I'm not an attorney, so I can't charge that much. And I always say that can't is perception. You're just thinking that you cannot, like that's just in your head. And I myself have struggled with it, which is why I'm like the best coach ever, because I went through that. Oh, I don't know if I could charge $500 an hour because my attorneys charge $500 an hour. And I'm like, well, I mean, again, it depends, right? Like you said, really, the way I like to answer that question for all of you, just in case, I'm going to give you a free coach 101 here, is look at your return on investment. How much is your overhead? How much time are you actually spending on that particular case or project or task versus how much is actually you're going to get out of it? So if you're going to spend more time, spend more resources, utilize more software, whatever the case may be, then you're pricing it wrong. So definitely you want to make a profit. We are in business to make a profit. So whatever that looks like for you guys is how you should be pricing your services and products and everything else. So that's my quick little tidbit there.
I think to add to that, another thing that's kind of a misconception, I mean, and we can talk about freelancing because I've been doing freelancing for the last year. But this idea of like hourly rates and, you know, should I be charging more or less? And I find with hourly rates, you can essentially even though you can do something fast, it's because you have experience and that's what they're looking for. So don't feel like you have to, like you feel bad for charging a large amount for a single hour. It's like, well, because of your experience, it only took you an hour.
Exactly.
So you have to be mindful of your experience and make sure you're charging appropriately regarding that as well.
Yeah, I mean, literally, if it takes you, and we all know that it's not just going to take you an hour because you're going to have to do some research, you're going to have to do drafting, grammar, formatting. So maybe the actual concept will take you the hour by the time you get everything and actually put it on, you know, your draft. But the time that it took you to get there, even if it just was those 30 minutes, because you already know what laws and rules and procedures and where to go, that all takes into account, kind of like what Rebecca was talking about. That might take somebody else a lot longer. And so take that. I agree with you. I definitely take that into consideration. That's amazing. So yeah, so talk about a little bit, because you said you freelance as well. So talk about how that looks like, right? Because our freelancing can be a little different than yours, obviously, because you have a lot more, I guess, legal rights.
Yeah. So I've been freelancing since August 2020. Like a lot of individuals during the pandemic, I found myself unemployed and I wanted to be in immigration law. I wanted to be a part of it and really get into it, but I wasn't finished my education yet. I was still going through it. So I decided to start freelancing as a licensed paralegal, but working with immigration lawyers. So you may have found, so you may have found with the summary of the paralegal scope of practice, immigration is not a part of it. We're allowed to do tribunal work, but we are not allowed to do the application process. As an immigration consultant, you're allowed to do the application process. Confusing, I know. So
that's why you got both.
Yeah. So
you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. So I do both now. And starting in August 2020, I started freelancing. So I've been working with immigration lawyers. I've been working with corporate lawyers. I've actually done a little bit of legal research for a US company. And essentially what it is I, as a freelancer, am helping businesses and law firms with their practice. So I'm not the representative on record, you are, but I am able to support you. So depending on who I work with, some people will call me an associate, some people will call me their legal assistant. Essentially, it's to keep it simplified for the client, but I help them with their practice. And then as I was being a freelancer, I became licensed as an immigration consultant. And then what I opened up was a blend of everything. So as of September 2021, which, you know, was a few weeks ago, basically, I opened up a business to combine everything. So it's the Immigration and Paralegal Law Office of Rebecca B. Tripp. A long name.
Get it, girl. Love it.
Being governed by two different bodies means that I have to have immigration in my title. I have to have paralegal in my title. So that's what came about from it. So yeah, so I still provide, I call it legal outsourcing now. So I help, I still help law firms with their practice. But what I'm also doing is helping the public. So I am doing the paralegal, a bit of the paralegal scope of practice. I'm doing legal research and legal opinions, the commissioning and the notarizing of documents as well. And then I'm also doing the immigration side of things. So I am now able to represent immigration applicants, which is super exciting, and to do the paperwork, which has been my goal from the beginning. And then lastly, I'm providing immigration coaching. So what that means is, as an immigration coach, I am helping people that are self-representing submit their application with confidence. And I find what happens.
Oh my God, I just got chills. Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
I find what happens with the legal industry is that a lot of people think there's only two paths. You either hire a lawyer, spend the money, and you just have to swallow those costs, or you take the leap of faith and you self-represent, which can cause a lot of problems. And I find a lot of people can self-represent, but they just need that a little extra support. They need someone to review the document. They need someone to ask questions to. So I decided to do immigration coaching. So say you have an application that you want to submit, but you're just kind of nervous to
not sure about.
Yeah, you can send it to me. I'll do a review. I'll let you know if there's gaps, if there's errors, if you've maybe used the wrong form, because immigration forms are a world of their own.
Yeah, no, girl, that's one thing I don't tap into. I did it once because one of my attorneys that I work with on other cases just said, hey, can you just do this one? And I'm like, like I started looking at it. I'm like, I wouldn't even know what form to like start with, because I literally went on our government site to get the form, and I'm like, no.
It's complicated. Yeah. And that's the exact reason why there's immigration lawyers that specifically work just on immigration forms and in cases, and there's immigration consultants that solely work on immigration as well. So my hope is that I'm able to kind of provide all these services and really be able to reach the two areas that I'm passionate about, which is helping sole proprietors and law firms handle their caseload, and to be able to see other entrepreneurs grow, and then also be able to help the general public and provide access to justice in a way that's approachable for them. So
that last bit right there almost made me cry, because we're literally on a mission for 2022 to create what we're calling the manual. I've been throwing out there with my publisher some titles, but we haven't really like stuck to one as of yet. I want one that's like empowering, that really is going to draw people in, because this is more for the general public. The last book that I wrote, it was for the legal professionals, just like a guide to walk them through the ins and outs of it all, and stuff that unfortunately education's not going to, find you. And even with a lot of experience, you may not be able to understand it and cope with it as much as possible, because it is a rigorous industry. And I've seen a lot of really good legal professionals leave the industry because of of just the chaos of it all. And the stories, we become psychologists sometimes, and there's always that one case that always sticks home with us. And I've shared that on the podcast once before, but and I still follow up with the family, and I'm very, very passionate about, providing that. So I guess our next step, right, because I'm always about beyond your potential, that's kind of our theme when it comes to Let's Talk Paralegal, is the general public, is to get these manuals into public schools, no matter how much the cost is. We're even willing to forefront the cost. Like we're willing to give it to you for free at this point. And just give them a manual to where it's incorporated in their mandatory courses. Because what my research has done, and I've hired a lot of other people to do the research too, because it's always nice to have several eyes on such a powerful movement, is that all these options to learn about law are options. So if you want to learn about it, you have to take it as an elective. Enter into a program. It's not included in those mandatory courses. And I'm like, but why not? Because law affects every aspect of your life and every industry. So it's such an important, just simple things like contract law can cover a lot, from getting your driver's license to getting insurance to buying a home. All that's contract law. Nobody realizes that it's under the same umbrella, but that's really what it is. So, just things that we as legal professionals have learned through the trajectory of our profession, experiences, education, not everybody has that. Not everybody has that knowledge. Not everybody has what I call that privilege. And that's unfortunate, you know,
Yeah.
like I always share this example. I don't think I've shared it actually on my own podcast, but my husband and I, we celebrated, I think it was like our second or third year as a married couple, because we've been together for longer than that, but our second or third year as a married couple, we went to Cancun, Mexico, and we had been to Mexico several times. We love Mexico, and shout out to my Mexicanos out there. But we went here to this beautiful resort. Obviously, my husband went all out. It was our wedding anniversary, and it was gorgeous, and the food was delicious, and it ended up being a great trip. But at the beginning, when you're, you know, about to check in, I started reading what you're signing, right? Like the policies and the procedure and the liability and all that. And I do that all the time. We've been to like escape rooms. We've done, you know, other hotels as well, but it's not that I'm not going to sign it because we're in another country, you know. It's like, it's not like I'm not going to sign it, but I want to know what I'm signing off on, you know what I mean? So I'm like, as he's like doing all the stuff and getting the keys and upgrading our room, because, you know, he is who he is. He loves to, you know, do that. And I'm reading it and I was like, wow, did you know that if, like, God forbid something happens, and I'm telling you, I'm talking to him, right? Like I'm talking with him as we were waiting for them to get us like the keys and stuff. And I'm like, did you know that like if we fall or something, we can't really sue them because we're signing off on the liability? And, you know, unless it's this, this, and this, and these are some exceptions that we have. And I'm just like talking out loud. And the lady behind me starts freaking out. Like she has no idea. She's like, oh my God, is that really what that says? I don't want to stay here. And like she starts freaking out, like complete freak out mode. And I was like, it's like that everywhere. Like it doesn't matter where you're at. This is just very specific information. And yes, you're signing off on it. So
She had no idea.
She had no idea. And I was like, yeah, that's the sad truth. Everybody just signs stuff and just moves on. Like, okay, whatever, you know, they sign their insurance policy, not even knowing what the hell they're covered, you know. So there's a lot of things that go unknown. And I think that the best way to do that, and like you said, for the general public, is through public school system, right? So teach them young, introduce it to them young, so that when they are ready to go out and to be an official adult, they're prepared. You know, they actually know something. They don't have to go to law school or paralegal studies or, you know, take an elective or something that's going to just teach them the very minimal. They have an entire manual that can explain to them these terms and these concepts and where they came from and where they can find that information, which is key. Not everybody knows where they can find this information because all this information is public, but nobody knows.
Well, and I find, you know, kind of going one step further, people don't know what questions to even ask, right? Like they don't know, you know, this information is public, or, you know, employment law, signing an employment contract is a contract, and that that's under like law and trying to understand your rights as an employee. Like so many people just don't even know what questions to even start with. And so I agree with you that it should be part of the like foundation of education, like when you're in high school. Imagine if we had an educational system that taught you how to do your taxes, and
amazing.
the 101 of like the legal system, like what a world we would live in. I think it would be amazing.
Yeah. And finances. Yeah. That's another one. Nobody knows what money is, what makes money valuable. Nobody knows the history of it. Right. There's a lot of things that we're not taught in school that I you know, I'm a bookworm. So I literally, it was funny because there was a bar, I don't know if you know Barnes and Nobles, it's like a famous bookstore here. And so there was one literally maybe 20 minutes from my house. And it was a little bit of a drive, but I loved that one. I don't know. There was something about it. And I worked my way through college and I went there, and that's where my study sessions were. And that's where my study groups happened. And it was my best friend and I were bookworms as well. We have that in common. And so we would go to this Barnes and Noble store all the time, and it closed due to the pandemic. And I literally cried. Like I literally passed by it and saw that it was like pretty much done, right? Like not coming soon, not under renovation. Like it's gone. And I started crying, like my eyes started getting watery. My kids are in the car and they're like, Mom, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, you don't understand how powerful books can be, you know, and how they can transport you into other worlds, how you can learn about things in somebody else's perspective. And, you know, because again, life is all about perspective. And so it was really hard on me. Like even now I still get watery eyed, but then I go and like I have these monthly brunches with my best friend, and we went to a brunch and it was literally in the same plaza, and I saw the coming soon sign, and I was like, what's coming soon? And it wasn't in the exact location because it was a huge location. It was in the same plaza, just a smaller, you know, a smaller area, but it said Barnes and Nobles, and I was like, her and I literally just like flipped, like we were just like, oh my god, and we were like, the guys at the restaurant were staring at us like we were nuts.
Yeah.
So I reached out to them and I wanted, you know, and I said, I want to do a book signing there, you know, in the near future. And it was just like a full like life circle. But, you know, my point of this whole rampage that I just went on is that, you know, the information is accessible. It's just teaching the people how to get there and what questions to ask and providing them these manuals and these guides to really get those wheels turning, because I feel like they don't know the questions because they don't know. They don't know what it is. They don't know the importance of it. They don't know how it's going to affect them. They don't know why they should know. Like, why is this such a huge, big deal? You know, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. That's the narrative. That's pretty much what the paralegals profession has proven, all in all. So, but that's awesome, Rebecca. I loved having you on. I can literally talk to you all day. This is amazing. I'm pretty sure there's so much more to learn. But I love these two topics. And of course, you know, welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal family, because that's it. Everybody that's on the show stays with us forever.
Well, I'm excited to be a part of it.
Awesome. Well, Rebecca, I wish you nothing but the best. Please continue your hard work, and we appreciate it regardless of where you're at. We appreciate it, because if you can make, you know, waves over there, you can bring them over here too. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
all right.